So, hey everybody, welcome back to Web Components in Space. I have burned my thrusters and I'm now in orbit over Northern Virginia, and we're talking to Christian Cantrell. He is VP of Product at Stability.ai and also an author. His most recent book was called Scorpion. It was a great read.
Well, first of all, I really feel underdressed. Sadly, my spacesuit is in the laundry. But thanks for having me on. So yes, if you like science fiction, I'm also a science fiction author.
Back in September, I was talking to Jason Mays. He's a Google developer evangelist. And there's also Dolly and Midjourney that's creating images from text.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure that, these things aren't available to people like me to run on my local machine because it's such a massive amount of computing power.
Huge models, yeah. You need a lot of money to run those.
Yeah. And then later that month, I downloaded Stable Diffusion locally on my M1 Mac. And at around the same time, Christian, so first of all, you formed an amazing prototyping team at Adobe, and you were just leaving that role to focus on your book, your own company doing API-driven, AI-generated work.
My day job is the intersection of AI and creativity. So as you said, I ran a prototyping team at Adobe. I was at Adobe for almost 20 years. I think I was 2 months shy of 20 years.
I feel like you're short selling. You started that prototyping team. That's right, right?
Yes. I mean, we kind of came together. I have to give Matthew Richmond some credit because he had kind of discovered the independently the value of bringing engineers into the design org to bring designs to life in order to help better communicate concepts to engineering teams from design, right? And he did that with a couple of fantastic engineers who I then inherited when I brought my team into the design org, and then we decided to combine them into a prototyping team. It's a really unique team, as you know, because you're on it.
Yeah, I'm on it.
I miss it very much. I miss the people very much, it was a huge amount of fun to do something that I think it was not just new inside of Adobe, but I think it's relatively new in the industry, right? And it's a big team. I mean, when I left, it was, I think, 26 people. I don't know what it is now, but I'm sure it's roughly the same. Having 26 people in a design org, 26 engineers who can bring design to life in order to communicate user interactions and paradigms and bring real world data into the design process, to bring code into the design process. It's a superpower. So that was a huge amount of fun. I love the team, and I still keep up with many people on the team. But I became increasingly interested in AI. And as you probably remember, I was spending more of my time. The way I ran the team is that, I had managers who would run, different elements of the team. And, of course, I would oversee everything. But then there was always something that I was personally most interested in that I would spend.
It was just gnawing at your brain, right?
I would just spend a disproportionate amount of time on that. I would work on it nights and weekends and do some of my own prototyping and coding. And since 2017, that was AI, the intersection of AI and creativity. Because what I love about what I realized pretty early on was that creativity was going to be the best, earliest application of AI, because you can make a lot of mistakes and you can iterate a lot. And if you have something like GPT-3 and you're getting information and you are trying to present that information, or you're trying to form a worldview or an opinion around that information, it isn't okay for that information to be wrong. And I'm not criticizing GPT-3. I love it. I love what OpenAI is doing. I actually write a lot of code on their APIs too. I love what they do. So this isn't me being critical. This is just sort of observing the space and saying, you can't really sort of iterate and just sort of be casually wrong when it comes to facts, especially when they sound so authoritative, right? There really needs to, you need to get to the point where the technology is pretty close to flawless. But I realized very early on that creativity didn't have that requirement. You could make mistakes, you could iterate. And sometimes there was even like serendipity in those mistakes. Sometimes it was fun. Sometimes the mistake would be even better than what you were expecting. So I realized that this was going to be a huge not just disruptive for creativity, but I realized it was going to be the one of the earliest and best applications of AI technology. So I decided to take a break from Adobe to step back and pursue some of my other passions, which I was doing some more writing, but also working on some code, writing some code. I wrote the Photoshop plugin, Stable Diffusion Photoshop plugin, and released that. And then I was going to start my own company and start building some of my own tools. I did start my own company, but then I ended up having a chat with Ahmad from Stability.ai and decided to join forces.
Cool. So you were, I remember you describing yourself very interested in, when you were doing your own company, you were interested in exposing this API for people. Is that still like to enable people to be creative?
Yeah.
So that goal seems is that goal, I don't know much about Stability, honestly. So is that goal in line with what their mission is as well?
Yeah, it is. It's very much in line with what I wanted to do, which is why I decided to join, because I realized I was doing the same thing, but I was doing it at a much smaller scale. And they just had resources and incredibly creative and smart people working there, and I just realized that it was going to be a huge unlock for me to join. But it's the missions, my little teeny tiny mission for my little teeny tiny company was very much aligned with Stability's. So part of my product portfolio is the API and the platform. So we have a really, really robust API. We have a gRPC API, which is very, very good and very efficient. Also a little difficult to use, just by nature of gRPC. Also, honestly, it's not documented as well as it could be, but we're going to fix that. And you guys can see all this. If you go to platform.stability.com, you can see it. We released a REST API, which was like my first order of business was like REST API. We have to make this more accessible, so you can find that at api.stability.ai. So that's a product. Like I consider that a product. And then there's Stream Studio, and there are other surfaces through which we integrate the APIs into creative workflows, right? So Stream Studio right now, that's Stream Studio.
Yep.
We're completely rewriting it. So what you see right now with Stream Studio is not what I think of as Stream Studio. That will be out soonish. And then our integrations, we have an integrations team, which are our plugins, and we have of course other things coming. But the API is a product, and we want people to mix and match. We want people to build their own creative workflows. It's sort of a bottom up approach, right? Things go from research into the API, and they get deployed at scale, and then we start building on top of them. And there's nothing that Dream Studio can do that the API can't do.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Like that was one of my questions for you. Like I know that I think maybe it's just my personal sphere, what I read online, but Stable Diffusion to me was the primary thing. And I learned about that as an open source project. It wasn't until much later that I found out about, Stability.ai is, I guess, behind this. How is that kind of a strategy? Like you want the world to know about the open source stuff first? Or is that just like what I'm hearing in my personal sphere? Like, is there any strategy to that, basically?
Yeah, Ahmad answers this question so much better than I do, because he was really, it was really his doing. But I think obviously it was the release of Stable Diffusion that changed the trajectory and led to where we are today. And that's what got my attention, right? So I was busy, hacking on top of, OpenAI APIs. In fact, I was kind of writing my own OpenAI APIs because OpenAI APIs, because they didn't have any at the time. So I was kind of, making my own to see, because I was just dying to see what would happen. Yeah, I'm a kind of a platform person, right? And I think in terms of primitives and then aggregating those primitives into higher level value. And those primitives didn't exist. So I was building those primitives and I was aggregating those primitives. They existed in some places, like some other APIs I was kind of grabbing and pulling them in and aggregating, but sometimes they didn't exist. So I was creating APIs on top of them, and I won't get into how I do that because it's super hacky, and I'm sure that it's not consistent with any user agreements or anything that. But anyways, it was all experimental. I didn't release any of it. And then I was starting to compose those services into higher level applications, things like bringing them into Photoshop and building other kinds of standalone applications. And then all of a sudden I was hearing about this, what is this, like Stable Diffusion, like open source, like, and I kept hearing, the weights are going to be released. And I was like, they're not going to release the weights.
I know. Yeah. After that whole OpenAI thing, I'm like, they're never going to. Yeah, exactly. They're never going to release anything.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I mean, for like maybe some academics, but like I won't be able to get my hands on. And then like one day I clicked on a link and I downloaded the weights and I couldn't believe it. And it took me a couple hours to get it all working because that was pretty early on. And but the first time I generated images on my own machine, I was just like, this absolutely has changed the trajectory of where this space is going.
I'm going to call back in your history a little bit because you used to be a Flash Air evangelist, I believe.
I was a PM.
PM. Okay, sorry. Yeah. But I remember those days, like every new feature, it came out of nowhere. It felt like Christmas morning. And I haven't, that sentiment hasn't been captured for me until I got Stable Diffusion running on my local machine again. So it just feels like the Flash days.
I feel the same way. So I was a PM on the Air team, but I was also, being a PM also means you're an evangelist. I was on the road a lot, doing a lot of presentations and talking about it, and it was just so fun. It was so fun to release a new version. And what I would do is, as the PM, to help define the APIs, I would pick a set of use cases that I wanted the next version of Air to support, and I would gather requirements around those applications, and I would start writing the applications myself, and I would write pseudocode because the APIs weren't there, and then that pseudocode would become the specification for the APIs that I needed, and then we would iterate on them, and then after the release, I would just release all of the code, all of the applications, all of it. I would open source all of it. So so on day one, you get the APIs, you get a bunch of open source code, you get examples, you get documentation, you get the whole thing. So I did want it to feel like Christmas. That's always how it felt to me. And I think, the release of Stable Diffusion, I mean, there aren't very many things that have captured my imagination like the intersection of creativity and AI in my career.
Yeah. So speaking of imagination, I was a little cold on using AI image generation at the start because it just feels so stiff. Like you do a one-time shot, you get an image back. I'm not even like that excited about image output as a creative process because I don't do, I haven't done that kind of stuff since college, just like creating a static image like that. I am curious about other use cases. So what I'm doing on this episode today is that I am creating an image replacement thing for alt text, to use that alt text, that accessibility text, to generate images. And so that's what I was kind of saying before, like, I'm not so excited about the actual beautiful image output. I'm more excited about what you can achieve through kind of automation, doing things instantly. And I'm wondering how much have you or Stability thought about these different use cases where you're not focusing on that beautiful image output?
Yeah, I agree. I think that, it's inevitable that we're going to look back on the way we're using this technology today, and we're gonna think of it as relatively primitive. It's a foregone conclusion, right? I mean, just the way that we engineer prompts, and I mean, it's sort of like the analogy that I sometimes draw is like the first iPhone apps were like flashlights or something, it's like and now smartphones sort of manage our entire lives, and so like we're going to grow into the ecosystem and grow into the space in ways that are difficult to predict now, but I think that you're onto something, right? I think that, I mean, what I love about the technology is that I love that its capability to realize what's in people's imaginations, right? So that's what I use it for. I'm not an artist, I don't create these great high resolution, works of art that I then, sell or print or something like that. That's not me. But I do use it for concept art for my writing, which I absolutely love. It is just one of the most fun things that I indulge in is to just sit down and take a piece of fiction. I often will use the Photoshop plugin just because what I'll do is I'll actually add features as I need them, as I'm using it. And generate concept art for something that I'm writing. It's just like it's sometimes, and this is kind of alluding to the serendipity that I mentioned earlier. I generated a set of images the other day for a story that we're now in the process of selling, and some of them came out better than I was envisioning.
Right.
Some of them, I was like, oh my God, that's even better than what I had in mind. And now the next time, I don't have a lot of time. I'm not writing anything right now, but the next time I do, I'm going to be visualizing these things as I'm writing them, because I'm just going to write them and then say, hey, I should generate some art as part of the pitch. What I'm going to do is it's going to be an interactive experience for me. So I'll be writing and I'll also be generating. And part of my writing process will now be visual. And the AI is going to come up with things that I go, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. Like, and I'm not talking about using Chat GPT or GPT-3 to write. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the visual element, right?
Yep.
So I'll have something in my head. I'll have it over here in Scrivener, but I'll also have it over here in Dream Studio, and then it'll become, this sort of iterative process between the two. So that's an interesting use case just personally for me. But this is, I think, like, I can't imagine a future where we're not, everything that we're doing that has to do with any kind of media isn't touched by AI, and in many cases primarily generated through AI. And I'm not an AI maximalist or something. It's like not like everything, like I'm a writer and I want to still write my own, prose, and I want to write, but at the same time, and we'll see when I introduce AI into my writing process. We'll see about that. I'm not quite sure yet, but I think automation, doing things at scale, workflows. I mean, anything to do with marketing and advertising. That's just table stakes. Like that's just a foregone conclusion that's going to be transformed. But and obviously artists and all that. But there's this huge space in between, which is just, I have something in my head. I need it. I really want to bring it into the world. And then it becomes this interactive, anyone who creates things, they realize that it isn't a process of just taking what's inside of you and somehow projecting it onto some kind of medium. That's not what art is. That's not what creation is. It's a dialogue. It's an interactive process. And what you have in mind and what your quote unquote canvas, whatever that canvas is, has in mind, it has its own, and you end up somewhere in the middle, and it's a delightful, wonderful dialogue. And I think that's what I love about this technology. It isn't, to me, it's so much about the creative process. It's not just about the asset.
Yeah. I am so glad you answered that question in the way you did, because I forgot to include my notes about your writing process and how this comes into play. I think you answered this question I didn't ask extremely well. So I know you have to run. I want to thank you so much for your time. You don't have to have any final thoughts, but if there's any final thoughts you wanted to add before we close this out,
I'll just say thanks for having me. And if anybody wants to talk about this stuff, I love chatting about it. Twitter's the easiest place to find me, or christiancantrell.com, and I have a contact section there. If you hate this technology and you want to berate me for it, which some people do, sure, you can do that too, I suppose. But really what I'm looking for, honestly, I'm looking for even people who are skeptical about this technology. If you're willing to have a civil debate, I'm up for it. Sadly, that's not the way it seems to play out mostly on the internet, but I love talking about this stuff. And I'm not, again, I'm not a maximalist. I'm open to different worldviews. I'd love to talk about it. So I'd love to chat with anybody who wants to learn more.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on today. Nice to see you.
Thanks.